Welcome to the FOX26 Townhall. Your voice, your future. Body image in a social world. Sponsored by Oasis, Eating Disorder Recovery. Moderating tonight's broadcast, FOX26 News anchor Liz Gonzalez.
It came to a point where I feel I started off just wanting to be healthy and wanting to meet this ideal that social media was sharing, that my school environment was sharing, and that just culture in general was encouraging.
It's bad enough that some teenagers and preteens struggle with what's in front of them in the mirror. Add the influence of what they're seeing on their screens, and the outcome is intense pressure that's making some sick as they obsess with having the perfect body.
I remember my dad would hold my jaw open while my mum syringed food down my throat just because I refused to eat.
Come on, Ash, you can do it.
Ashley Thomas shared her story with our sister station in West Palm Beach, Florida. She was hospitalized for 3 months. Her heart stopped twice as she battled anorexia.
Funny because only looking back on my recovery journey now do I see photos and go, wow, I was really sick. I think I was in denial and I never thought there was an issue because, losing weight and wanting to be healthy is so glamorized in the world that we live in today that I just thought I was doing what everyone else was doing.
6 years later, Thomas is on the other side, now encouraging others to find value in themselves rather than seeking approval from others.
Whilst we can blame the platforms all that we like, it's not really going to get us anywhere. And I feel that if we really want to take accountability in our lives, and that's something that I really had to learn in my recovery, to stop pointing the finger and realize that I'm in control of my life and I'm in control of my actions.
Well, good evening and welcome to our FOX26 Town Hall Body Image in a Social World. I'm Liz Gonzalez, and we are coming to you live from the beautiful Hoover High School campus here in Fresno. We want to thank Fresno Unified for accommodating us and allowing us to have this here. And we also want to especially thank Oasis Eating Disorders Recovery for sponsoring tonight's very important town hall. Earlier this month was Body Image and Eating Disorders Awareness Week, but as we know, this is a struggle that knows and respects no boundaries and no calendars. Over the next hour, we are going to dive into this issue, starting with a panel of students from right here at Hoover High School who are going to be talking to us about the struggles that they face or they hear from their friends and what seems to help. We're also grateful to have a panel of experts that are providing their time and their insight, starting with Stacey Ippolito, who is the clinical director at Oasis Eating Disorders Recovery. Before Oasis, she was a program therapist in the Eating Disorders Outpatient Program at Sharp Mesa Vista Hospital in San Diego. She is a Central Valley native, eager to encourage others in healing their relationship with food and self-image. Dr. Veronica Ramirez is a board-certified pediatrician who practices with CMP Pediatrics. She's been in private practice now for 12 years, treating infants, children, and adolescents. She is also the proud mother of 4 children. Sunny Yingling is a registered dietitian and owner of Kitchens Nutrition. She specializes in eating disorders, sports nutrition, and weight management. She is also a board-certified specialist in sports dietetics. And Holly Rooks is a licensed marriage and family therapist with 15 years of dedicated experience supporting youth who have experienced trauma. Over the past 6 years, she's been part of the Office of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools All for Youth program, which was created in partnership with Fresno County Department of Behavioral Health. Now, that program helps youth and families access services across all 31 school districts here in Fresno County. Now, we're going to be hearing from our panel of experts in just a few minutes, but we're going to dive in with our experts who are experiencing this firsthand, and that is our students here from Hoover High School that are joining us tonight. We have Dixie Lawrence joining us, Riley Hashimoto, Maddie Colvin, Leah Quintero, and Amy Orsupakit that are joining us this afternoon. There's research from the Wiley Handbook of Eating Disorders that shows around 50% of 13-year-old American girls reported being unhappy with their bodies, and this number grew to nearly 80% by the time they reached 17 years of age. Boston Children's Digital Wellness Lab also asked a group between 13 and 17, which would include all of you, about the impact of social media on their bodies, and nearly half, 46%, said that social media makes them feel worse. 40% said it makes them feel neither better nor worse, and 14% said that it makes them feel better. So Does this sound pretty accurate to you, Dixie, would you say, or from what you're hearing from your peers and what you're experiencing?
Yes.
To what degree, or what would you say about that in terms of the images that you come across on social media?
On social media, there's a lot of different images I can see. Like, I don't really use social media.
Riley?
From being on social media for like the past 4 or 5 years, I feel like I've seen a lot of different opinions on people's like body image and themselves and how other people treat each other based on what they look like. And I feel like the percentages start to make sense once you begin to look at how people begin to treat each other, not just on social media, but also as they begin to kind of either grow friendships with each other or communicate more on campuses or just in social life in general.
It's also a result of what you're seeing, Maddie. I saw you over there, in some respects, almost shaking your head or nodding.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty accurate because as someone who's had social media for like a couple years, I would say that like it does reflect a lot on your body image and stuff because there's just so much like negative things on there, but there's also positive things on there that you could look at, you know, like, but I feel like a lot of people just use it for both of them, honestly. So it's like in between, I guess.
And this is one of those things where we're approaching you guys because quite honestly, we didn't grow up with this. We thought it was bad enough with what we had from what, you know, rumors would spread. But now it's not just the rumors that you'd have to deal with during school time or pass over the phone, but it's in real time right there. I see you agreeing over there, Amy.
I do agree on this. From what I heard and experienced, that most teens, I think they're kind of unhappy with their body because of social media, because they want to fit in to high school, especially like, you know, kids our age are in high school, girls our age are in high school. They want to fit in, or they're worried about losing weight, or like worrying about their looks. And I feel like teens our age, they're not confident in how they look, even though they should, like, you know, love themselves, because it's you.
It's one of those things where, having been a size 8, I thought I was fat. I wish I was a size 8 now. Thinking about it, Leah, do they feel pressured to look a certain way?
I definitely do feel like girls or anyone feel a certain type of way, and they really do care about what they look like, because on social media there's so much editing, there's so much AI, there's so much unrealistic body types that some younger girls want to meet up to just to get some people's attention, because it does suck. Because the age of just being 13 years old is getting younger at this point. Like, I know 9-year-olds on TikTok, on social media, that want to already use retinol, skincare that should be for older women. They want to use retinol because they care about their skin at such a young age. And I feel like girls at 9 years old should not be worrying about that. They should be playing with dolls like I did, but now it's just about how you look. And I fear that it will get worse and worse throughout the years.
Do you think that teens are more willing to listen to a parent or their peer if there was a concern that there was some concerns regarding body image, or if somebody may be doing some sort of self-harm, whether it's purging or binging? I mean, would they be more willing to listen to the peers or their parents, do you think?
I think they will more likely listen to their peers, especially somebody like around our age, and especially if somebody's like going through it, because it, you know, if they want to, like, I feel like they're more connected because if they're going through it, and they could connect with it and talk about it with them more than their parents that didn't really grow up with social media or like growing around that kind of type of stuff.
Riley?
I also feel that parents can be also a big help with like helping kids kind of like accept their body image of themselves, because some kids have like a better relationship with their parents than their peers, and it could also go the other way around. So I feel like at that point it kind of just depends what kind of relationship you have with your peers or your parents, and if they would be willing to help you or reassure you about your body image and make sure that you're happy with what you look like.
I think it was one of those questions that was definitely worth asking, because you're at that age where it's hard to tell whether you get along with your parents or not, because you're a teenager and you're still trying to figure out who you are and what it is that you feel. Maddie, I see you nodding in agreement there.
Yeah. So I would definitely say that students or kids agree more with their peers, friends, like younger kids, rather than their parents, because, you know, some kids don't like listening to their parents and don't like taking their advice. But on my side, I feel like I would agree with both my peers and my parents, because, you know, sometimes your peers do have good advice, but sometimes they don't. But that could be the same for parents too. Like, you never know. And like, but as someone who grew up with like my mom, like, she helped me a lot too, and so did my grandma, because like we're bigger women, we're bigger girls, so like we know how that feels. And like with peers' advice, it doesn't really help me, because they sometimes just bring me down because of how because I such like, oh my gosh, sorry, because I am a bigger girl. But like, I just feel like they would listen to their peers more though, because like it's your kids, like, you don't like listening to your parents.
Or sometimes I think maybe as a teenager you just want to be heard.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be it. Maddie, you were talking about not being on social media very much. Were you added on it at one point? Or no, I'm sorry, that was actually Dixie. I'm sorry, Dixie. Are you on social media right now, or were you on it at some point?
I was on it at some point. I was.
How hard is it to be a teenager that's not on social media now?
It's pretty hard. Like, I can't stay into the groups I'm in. And I can't stay focused on school.
How do people react? I'm going to have you pull your microphone a little bit closer. How do people react when you tell them, I'm not on anything?
They're surprised. They would think I would be on social media because I'm a teenager.
Is there any one platform how many platforms were you on at one point?
I was on Instagram for a very long time.
Okay. And is there anything in particular that made you want to say, this isn't for me?
No, not really.
How about the rest of you? Do you find, are all of you on social media, or do you find more people checking out of it and just saying it's not worth it? I see you over there agreeing.
So I was on social media at one point. I did decide to stop using it, so I've deleted it from my phone. I definitely would say it has a big impact on, it had a big impact on how I viewed myself, and I'm sure that's how it is for other people too, because sometimes, like I said, you're scrolling and you see unrealistic body types of girls, and you just want to be that way and you want to be like them. And sometimes it's hard because there's negative things that I understand people post to relate, but then you keep on reading it, and then it keeps on reading about negative things about how people feels about themselves and their bodies, and you relate so much, and you just feel so sad at that point.
You're being empathetic with them because you're feeling what they're, I see you over there as well. In agreement, Amy. Riley, did you want to say something?
I feel like, especially when you're on social media more, especially when you're in high school, because so many communities on high school, they all bleed into social media in some form, whether it be a account page that gives you updates on like a certain club or something, or it could be a group chat with your classmates to keep you in the know of a class. I feel like the more you're on social media, the more it kind of bleeds into your actual life, especially with the body type stuff, as that is regularly recommended on feeds of new accounts. So most kids, when they go into social media for the first time, that'll be some of the first things that they're seeing, and it'll kind of create this bad thought in the back of their head about how they look.
We'll be talking a little bit more about parents with their panel of experts as well, but how many of you have heard parents make comments about your weight or about their weight, and has this affected your outlook or shaped your view of how you should look? I see you over there in agreement again. Yeah. You mentioned that that's something you talk with your nana about and your mom, right?
Yeah, so so my mom, she never talked bad about my body or my grandma, but it was all of our other family. They would always talk bad about us and like how they viewed us. But it didn't make sense to me because my family, we are bigger people. There's no skinny person in my family, so I don't see why they would make fun of us. But like, if your parent or someone in your family is doing that, then I don't think you should be around them anymore.
Maintain your peace, I say.
Yeah,
Amy?
Yeah.
I feel you, girl. I feel you. I'm kind of like the black sheep of my family because, like, I'm more into my culture, I would say. And when they kind of, like, look at it, they're like, oh, she's like that type of girl. She wants to be really strict on her culture and religion, but it really isn't like that. And you know, you get hate, or you have those aunties and uncles that be like just hating on you for no reason. It affects you because, like, you know, that's your aunt, that's your uncle, that's somebody you look up to, that's an adult, and it will affect you. You know.
It's a person for respect. There's a big push for body positivity. Do you see your peers supporting or believing in this?
Maybe sometimes, like, if they see certain flyers or something going around, like on social media or in person at different events, they might be more towards it, spreading more positivity, body positivity.
Really?
I feel like it really comes from the type of people that you surround yourself with. Like, it's really from what they ingest as, or what they see as the truth, and what they see as like something that's just not true at all. Like, body image is something that you're able to dictate for yourself, and you should be able to look happy however you want to look, but you shouldn't completely change your life over some post that you see on social media, or let something influence you to the point where you feel like you have to change your life. I feel like it comes from both social media and also the people that ingest that kind of stuff on social media, because then they begin to project that on you and try to make you change how you look for, like, what they think is better for you.
Leah?
I would say, honestly, I agree of what they both said, but for the body positivity thing, I think it's really nice to have support sometimes, but then there's other times where it sucks because it's supposed to be women supporting women, and then women degrade other women for how they look because they're either jealous or they just don't like them, and then the girls are... It's complicated because sometimes they're like, oh, body positivity, but then when the girl does something they don't like, they go and judge the girl. And it could be very hurtful to some people. I mean, like, just from, like, personal experiences, like, not from my personal experiences, but seeing my friends, like, they will be super nice people, they'll spread body positivity, and then when the person does something, they start to shame them or degrade them, and that sucks because women should be supporting each other and bringing each other up, when in reality, some just bring each other down.
As Amy called them, haters.
Haters.
What do you guys want people to know? I'm going to just go down the line. What do you want people to know about? I mean, how hard is it to be a teenager now? And especially dealing with the pressures. I know it's a very loaded question, but I mean, is there anything that you think that people are missing the mark on in terms of your experience?
I'd say it's pretty hard being a teenager now because, like, you have to fit into the beauty standards and understand what's going on. Like, for me, I don't have social media, so, like, I don't understand most of the stuff that's going on.
I feel like as you get further into being a teenager, as you get into later years of teenage life, you kind of begin to understand, like, everything that you see on social media or everything that your peers, like, talk to you about or project on you. It's not always going to be what you want or what's good for you. So I feel like as you begin to kind of mature, begin to kind of crawl more into your own skin. You kind of get to take your own mentality, and you get to understand what's good for you and what you want to look like.
Boundaries.
I would say that becoming a teenager is really hard because, like Dixie said, you got to fit into the beauty standard when you see it. Like, when you're on social media, you got to, like, whenever you're looking at, like, different people, you're like, oh, I want to look like that, oh, I want to be that person. But in reality, like, you're just you. Like, you can't change anything about yourself unless, like, you actually do. But, like, I've had people try to change me before. Like, it's worked sometimes, but I've just always fallen back into my own self. Like, I just think people should know that, like, you shouldn't change yourself for nobody. Like, what you look like, what you, like, do, how you act, like, nothing. You just be yourself, you know?
I definitely agree with what Maddie and Riley said, because when you do get older, you have to fit in, or when you go to a different place, you feel like you have to fit in. You don't have to, but you feel like you want to or you have to. And it sucks. I mean, definitely for me, for my personal experiences, I've always wanted to dress a certain way, but even now, at public events or anywhere I go, I change the way I dress, or I change the way I do my makeup, or I change how I really want to be, just so that people could call me pretty, or just so that people could think that I'm normal in a way because of the stereotypes and everything.
I agree with all of them said. Like, I agree with all of them. And it is really hard to be a teenager these days because you're surrounded by social media and you're influenced by it. And you see your friends go out and you see your family and connect. And you just see it on social media. It's just around you. And, you know, it's just kind of harder now because it's easy, you know, to get things around like rumors and fake stuff and haters. And, you know, like that type of stuff. It's kind of hard, yeah.
Maddie, I think you nailed it when you were saying that it's just important sometimes about the images that you see because it helps to see yourself. It helps to see yourself. I come this to you as a television news anchor. I don't wear a size 2. I wear a size 16. I'm breaking the mold myself, and I'm proud of you guys for joining us today to talk with us because it helps to see yourself and other people. Thank you guys so much for your candid. We're going to be looking at the issue of body image from so many different angles tonight. Coming up, we're going to look at what parents need to know and the signs that they may miss, what treatment looks like and the role that family members can play in this. We're also going to be looking at what's being done to hold social media companies accountable and the simple thing that parents can do early on to prevent body image issues in their children. We'll be right back. And thank you guys again.
Welcome back to Fox 26's Town Hall. Your voice, your future. Body image in a social world.
And welcome back to our Fox 26 Town Hall on body image in the social world. Moments ago, we heard from our panel of students, the student experts, and now it's time for a panel of professionals to join us. We're going to dive right in. Stacy, when we did a pre-interview with you, you said body image and the issues that come with it are not talked about enough. Why do you think that it's so taboo? You even said it seems to almost be counterproductive to not talk about it.
I do, and I think that people might be afraid to talk about it because there is so much stigma around having the conversation. I think there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with talking about body image because what we all might neglect is the fact that we all struggle with it. And until you make peace with your own body image, you're not as comfortable talking about it. So I think until you do your own inner work, your own healing of what it is that you perceive about yourself, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's neutral, I think it makes it harder for someone to have an honest conversation and even open the dialogue to talk about it with people.
Either that or you encounter embarrassment and people just that aren't there. They're not at the point where they can talk. Sunny, it used to be that the images of models and celebrities would bombard us at the grocery store when we see the covers of the magazines. But now social media has taken this to something that is 24/7 in our faces, accessible. Sometimes by our own devices, we wind up on it. How hard is it? What do you hear from your clients?
Yeah, it's constant. It is absolutely in their faces all the time, whether they want it to be or not. No matter what, if they're on social media, they will see it. The exposure is there. Certainly one of the biggest issues is if they look at it once, the way the algorithms work, they continue to look at it over and over again, whether they want to or not. And so it's constant, it's consistent, and it's hard to get away from even when they want to.
We're going to be talking about the algorithms coming up a little bit. According to a national poll from CS Mott Children's Hospital, nearly 2/3 of parents say their child is self-conscious about some aspect of their appearance. 32% say that they're pretty self-conscious when it comes to acne. 31% say that they are self-conscious when it comes to weight, and just 8% say that their child has restricted what they eat that they know of. Dr. Ramirez, does that, just 8%, does that number sound low to you?
You know, it matches the incidence and prevalence numbers that we see with eating disorders that are reported in like medical journals and studies. However, I mean, I think all of us can say that our experience tells us that that's probably underreported. So we're certainly seeing a lot more of these types of issues than we did in years past. And I certainly think social media plays a role in it.
What would you say are some of the signs that not just parents, grandparents, aunties, people, guardians raising our children, what are some of the signs they need to look for?
You know, changes in eating behaviors. We stop sharing meals with the family. We want to take our meals to the room, wearing baggy clothes. And when you look at your child, you know, has there been a significant change in their body weight? And are there any other symptoms that could concern you? Like, are we feeling lightheaded in addition to the other things that I've mentioned? Or have we actually passed out and we're noticing that we're skipping meals and we're bringing our lunch home? So a whole culmination of things. But what I would advise parents is if you have any concerns, just go see your pediatrician.
Stacey, are there any other signs that you can think of?
I think if you start to notice withdrawal in general, so similar to what Dr. Ramirez was speaking to, but specifically when it comes to either meal times or even social gatherings that involve meals, there's usually a preoccupation with being observed as either participating or not participating with food. I think those might be some more covert opportunities for at least teens or even family members to really start to display habits that you wouldn't maybe make the connection to. And I think just being conscious if the kids aren't really wanting to go out and hang out with friends anymore when it's food related, that can also be a sign. Or if they start to say things like, oh, I'm going to go eat with my friends when we hang out. So again, it's not going to be things that you become kind of like, oh, that's the telltale sign. But rather things like over time, if those patterns keep repeating themselves, that's going to be an indication that potentially something's going on.
The one that surprised me, Dr. Ramirez, when we were talking was you were saying even the kids, if right after they eat, they say, I've got to go to the restroom.
Right, and that's a symptom that we worry about for kiddos who might be purging after meals. And that one in particular I find very worrisome because those types of behaviors can lead to electrolyte abnormalities and a whole culmination of things that potentially could end up requiring hospitalization.
We're going to talk about more on that in a second. Holly, I'm turning to you. Obviously, many parents can't be around their kids around the clock. They send them to school. What are some of the signs that educators should be looking for at school sites as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that has already been mentioned, just on the perspective of a teacher. In addition to that, some of the things that I find more interesting are that those compensatory behaviors, the behaviors that happen to compensate for binge eating, could be things like extreme exercise or extreme dieting, or they want the newest fad diet. I'm going to cut out this food group, or I want a diet pill, or, like those kind of things. Or if you're seeing them as a teacher, you're seeing them pick through their food or take tiny bites and throw the rest away, or they're avoiding lunchtime altogether, or they're wearing loose-fitting clothes all of a sudden, or things like that.
Dr. Ramirez, we hear a lot about body mass index, those three lovely letters. Should our preteens or teenagers be obsessing when it comes to the numbers that come with those letters? And I also want to touch upon the fact that it's not just girls that we're seeing struggling with this. You're seeing boys and girls struggling with this.
Right. It's not gender specific. It can be, it can affect anyone. when it comes to BMI, we have a utility for it in the medical profession, and I always tell my families whenever we're doing our physicals that, you know, that particular number may not be applicable to everyone. And so we really got to take multiple things into consideration when we're looking at BMI, because we could have a shorter athlete with muscular build, and when we calculate BMI, they might fall into the obese range and truly not be obese. And so I always say, leave that to us to look at, and it's not something that families or kids should really be looking at or calculating, because we're, you know, good health and nutrition and growth is kind of this bigger picture, and it's not just a specific number.
Stacey, at one point, should parents be reaching out for help?
I think as soon as they notice that what they have always known their kid to be as their kid changes. So if their perspective or their perception of their habits, their behaviors, their communication styles, things that would be what we might define as like odd or off, should be a parent's first sign to kind of start to question, I wonder what's going on with my kid. Is something going on with my kid? Have things changed? Have they started hanging out with different people? Is there different influences? And, you know, as we're talking about social media, you wonder how much more time they might be spending on social media and what those influences might be, different pages they're looking at, TikTok accounts that they're following. Those are maybe all going to be signs to start to pay attention to something might be wrong.
Sunny, I saw you over there nodding in agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone hit the nail on the head, the isolation. And one of the things that I will notice with so many of my clients that are in recovery and doing better is the parents will say, I feel like I have my child back. And they notice that their personality, their interests, their love for others and social gatherings, like they're able to participate in that again, and they're able to connect with their parents again. And so really, I mean, that is one of the most common things I hear, I have my child back. And so you really see that difference.
Holly, disorders present themselves, including bulimia, anorexia, present themselves differently in our young people. When we were talking, you were telling me that culturally speaking, African American students and Latino students are some of the groups that, or youth rather, are some of those that experience, that are experiencing this stuff. But a lot of times it can be overlooked, it can be missed simply because of the body, the shape of the body, right?
Yeah, so, and feel free to speak up and add to anything that I'm saying. I learned this from Dr. Carolyn Ross, and it's about, you know, when you picture an eating disorder, the image that comes to mind is a young white female. And so because that doesn't fit the mold of a lot of people, and so they have to work past the stigma of mental health in and of itself, and then that doesn't fit me, so it's probably not me. So then you get all the way past that, and you say, you finally get to treatment, and then the treatment options are rarely culturally affirming. So it's a really big barrier and an uphill battle for some of our BIPOC communities.
And you were saying, again, when we picture, if it's a white teenager that is experiencing this very gaunt looking, but Latinas and African Americans, we have curves. We have curves, and it's a little harder to tell when something the physical aspect of it is not necessarily going to throw you off right away.
Yeah, and it comes back to what Dr. Ramirez was saying about BMI. You know, there are some diagnoses that require a specific BMI. Well, when culturally you don't fit that mold, it's harder to fit you into a specific category. And there's also a preconceived notion or implicit bias that those cultures value big people, and so they don't even get screened for eating disorders because it's seen that that's just acceptable.
Wow. Okay, I think it may be time for another break. We've talked about what to look for. Is there anything else that anybody else wants to say that we've missed so far in terms of things to look for parents?
I think I would just add that it's not all restricting. There's opposite ends of that as well. And so if you're worried about any particular behavior that regarding food and eating that seems unusual or different for your child, it's not wrong to go and at least get checked out.
Ask away. All right, thanks so much. Well, it is time for another break. We've talked about, again, what to look for. Next, we're going to talk about what treatment looks like and the role that everyone in the family can play in helping their boy or their son or daughter's recovery, or in this case, niece or nephew, grandchild's recovery. We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 26's Town Hall. Your voice, your future. Body image in a social world. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 26's Town Hall. Your voice, your future. Body image in a social world.
And we want to welcome you back. For those of you that are just joining us, we are spending this hour talking about ways to help our young people who are facing pressures that most of us never faced. Of course, we did face pressures when it comes to body image, but now it's in a social world where things are getting thrown in their face 24/7 by way of the phone, tablets, computers. It's a lot to take in. So, Stacy, we were talking about at what point do parents reach out for help? What are signs to look for? What does treatment look like? I know that there's not a one-size-fits-all thing. So, but tell me, if somebody comes to you, what are some of the options? What are we looking at?
So there's going to be different levels of treatment in terms of acuity of symptoms. So as Dr. Ramirez was mentioning, potentially hospitalization might be a treatment plan for someone. For those that are suffering, we do offer at Oasis what we call partial hospitalization level care and intensive outpatient levels of care. And those are ones where the teens will go back home in the evenings and weekends, still receiving more intensive services throughout the day. And one of the things I really value about that is it's a way for them to be able to practice in their home environment what they're learning in program, so that there's more of a transfer and really, I think, promoting more independence with their own recovery. So within that, we do encourage the family's involvement. And so one of the things we really prioritize is family sessions to help orient everyone to what the treatment plan looks like and to what the treatment plan is for the patient as much as it is for the family's involvement.
I wouldn't have thought hospitalization. That's wild to think. Dr. Ramirez, you were telling me that treatment requires different disciplines with therapy as the cornerstone.
It absolutely is. We on this panel work together, and so it's multifactorial, and all components are really important. And from my perspective, it's making sure that our patients are medically stable, and it's differentiating. Do we need to go to a more intensive therapy and require hospitalization for getting our nutrition back and making sure that our heart is beating, in a way that isn't going to be harmful. And the other important components is working with our dietitian. But therapy, is the most important part in my eyes, because how do we get to the root of the problem that's making us feel this way or think this way? And it's working that out with our friends over at Oasis.
Sunny?
Well, I was going to say, oftentimes as I think about my role as the dietitian, and I will explain to patients and parents, part of my role is to help them nourish their brains well enough to where they can get what they need to out of their therapy, because they need to be able to connect what's going on and to heal the brain and to make new connections. And you can't do that without adequate nutrition. So it's like I'm helping them with a foundation so that they can get the work done with the therapist that they really need to.
Holly, let's just say that a teacher suspects that something is going on, either an eating disorder or body dysmorphia. Parents, of course, will be notified, or a guardian is notified. What happens next?
Yeah, great question. So, of course, get the ball rolling with what are your treatment options on campus and what resources do you have available to you? And, every campus is different as far as do they have the All for Youth program? Do they have their own mental health professionals on campus? Things like that. But also I would recommend to teachers to just approach the child with compassion. Expect resistance because eating disorders are something that happen typically in secret. There's shame around it, and so expect it to take time for them to be open to receiving that treatment as well.
If I'm a parent and I cannot afford anything, I know that I don't come from the means. We have a QR code that I know we've got the full screen prepared. What can people find? What are some of their options or some resources available?
Yeah, so there's actually quite a few options to petition your current insurance that they might cover it. But if you don't have insurance and you need insurance options, there's a lot of resource centers around Fresno. One of the ones that we're going to show the QR code for
is actually up right now.
Awesome. It's called the Wellness Center. That's through the All for Youth, and they have family partners who will work with you to find, financial resources for you, insurance options for you, and they'll work with you along the way. And if you can't find an insurance option, the National Eating Disorder Association has some partnerships with like Project Heal and things like that that might be willing to fund your services.
Okay, Dr. Ramirez, what are the physical effects of eating disorders beyond weight loss? We were talking about preteen and teenage years. Those are critical to building bone density. What happens with that? And you were also saying arrhythmia is another consequence as a result of this. If you can talk to us about that.
Right, and so, if the child is struggling with an eating disorder where we're restricting or not getting enough nutrition, and we're in our prime growth years, we're not going to have optimal growth. The kids are laying down their bone density, and we worry about osteoporosis if you missed out on nutrition during your critical years. We worry about your heart muscle, and so that's where that comes from. And so if you're not getting nutrition for all of your body, your heart is a muscle, and it also is going to lack some, all the nutrients that it needs. But when it's extreme, they may experience really low resting heart rates, and those are the ones that worry us. Those, alone with that, meeting that criteria, it's an admission criteria for hospitalization. So we're looking at those things, and blood pressure. If we're having really big fluctuations in blood pressure with position changes, that also is admission criteria. And if our electrolytes are significantly off, our bodies rely on our potassium and our sodium and our calcium and magnesium and phosphorus. And if those are off, it could jeopardize your health and potentially be fatal. So those are severe cases, but typically as a team, we're looking at those things all together. And if a patient is going over to our dietitian and she has significant concerns that we're not meeting our daily caloric goals, then they might bounce back to me, and we need to do labs, and we need to do our orthostatic blood pressures and check our heart rates. And, and that kind of determines what level of treatment that they end up at.
Sunny, we were talking about reestablishing a relationship with food. We've got the charts. I hope we can pull them up there. Starting with the My Plate, the update from the food pyramid, which most of us grew up with. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, represents how much to each from each of the food groups. That, however, is considered maybe a good starting point, right?
Yeah, I mean, the models that are out there are, I always remind people, they are guidelines, right? And they're not rules, they are guidelines. And it can be a great place to start visually as you are talking to children about balance and having all the food groups represented and the importance of each one. The problem is sometimes people will be very rigid with it, and there's no flexibility with wait a second, my child plays all these sports, and so now we need to adjust the carbohydrate intake and do some things like that. And so it's a great starting point, again, for that concept of balance, but we have to be willing to say, but my child is an individual, and I need to honor if they are hungry after they eat that plate, or if they are full 3/4 of the way through, and be willing to assess that and honor that.
Yeah, I was looking at the chart that you also sent me from the Dairy Council of California. It's talking about a fistful of milk or a fingertip of peanut butter, and I'm like, that's not enough for anybody. But we'll touch on that a little bit more. It is time for another break, but when we come back.
I do worry that for many children, the effects are in fact harmful and are contributing to the depression and the anxiety that we see among many young people, as well as issues with body image.
We'll look at what's being done to get social media companies to do more to help our youth from Capitol Hill to Sacramento, and we look at what parents can do now to prevent issues down the road. We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 26's Town Hall. Your voice, your future. Body image in a social world. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 26's Town Hall. Your voice, your future. Body image in a social world.
Social media may provide some benefits for some children. There's a growing body of research associating social media use with potential harms. This is especially concerning during adolescence, which is a highly sensitive period of brain development for kids, and when they're particularly susceptible to peer comparison.
That was U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was speaking before a Senate hearing on youth mental health last June. Since then, Dr. Murthy has called on Congress to put warning labels on social media platforms. Big tech pushed back, saying that infringes on free speech. That was on Capitol Hill. Last year, California lawmakers also tried to hold social media platforms liable for promoting harmful content. We had Senate Bill 680, which would have placed restrictions on designs, algorithms, and features related to self-harm.
Researchers posing as teen girls on social media platforms were directed to content on eating disorders every 39 seconds, regardless of any request or content request by the teen.
SB 680 would have made companies face a penalty of up to $250,000 for every violation. The author, Senator Nancy Skinner of Berkeley, said social media companies create highly specialized algorithms so they know the information that is going out. It cleared the Senate, but lawmakers killed it in the assembly. We were talking about algorithms. Sunny, what role, if any, do you think that lawmakers could or should play in this issue? You mentioned some patients have talked about getting caught up in algorithms that won't stop giving them recommendations that could be harmful, or that even makes them scared to go on social media because of the ads.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions that I always ask my clients is, what are you being exposed to? And social media is obviously on the top of the list, and what they are seeing. And oftentimes people are well-meaning on social media. They are sharing their journey or their story. And so what seems harmless to anybody else, to somebody who's really struggling with body image or eating disorders, they see it and it's extremely harmful. So some of them want out of that cycle, but they continue with the algorithm to be exposed to the same thing over and over again. And I would love if there was a way to opt out of certain messaging that they could say, hey, this might be appropriate content for these people, but not for me. And to be able to opt out of those options and continue to participate on social media in healthy ways.
I know that Instagram, for example, replied to some of the comments from lawmakers saying, we've already outlawed a bunch of these hashtags, but there's people will still find a way to go around them. Holly, you said taking away the phones from our kids may not be a practical option for a lot of families, but it is a good idea maybe to encourage them to change who they follow.
And I think our young people were talking about that earlier, just changing what you consume, because a lot of what we believe about ourselves in the world is highly influenced by the media that we consume. And one of our young people called it ingesting the social media. And so there are a lot of really great options out there for positive things that you can watch. There's the Dove Sketch Project. There's Nalgona Positivity Pride. There's so many options for our young people to just slightly change what they're watching so that it makes them feel a different way.
Holly, comparison is a thief of joy. And if you're starting to follow an influencer who you're like, I think they're fit, they're showing me great workouts, but then again, these are kids that are having these behaviors that are taking things to the extreme. We have to really be careful with that as well. It's just a matter of moderation, right? Yes. And Sunny, the same thing. Comparison is a thief of joy.
Absolutely, absolutely. It creates such a discontent. Like, I could be this or I should be this, and it's hard. It's hard to have that exposure ongoing.
Stacey, are there any ways that parents can keep a closer eye on their children without being overbearing? I even asked this as a mother of a soon-to-be 8-year-old. But as simple as eating dinner together, like Dr. Ramirez was saying.
I think, if anything, that's probably what I hear is the most healing aspect of treatment from a lot of my adolescent patients, is that they miss the chance to connect with their parents, and that what they're finding is that with demanding schedules, with single parent homes, with limited support within the family system, they lack the connection. And so look at what they're looking at on social media, because if they're looking at things by way of wanting to have connection, to feel connected, peer influence, there's, the thing we talk a lot about is like a social brain at that age, and how that may be influencing by their environment. And so if the parent or the family system isn't available in their environment, they're going to seek other opportunities to feel connected. And that's where I think parents can reconnect with their kids to find ways to be more involved, ask questions, hey, how was your day? How are things going? Anything new going on at school? What are your friends up to? And that, I think, would feel less invasive or less helicopter parent, and more welcomed, I would say, from the adolescent perspective.
Make it sound as natural as possible.
Exactly.
There's research that kids as young as 3 can have body image issues. We were talking about parents modeling for our students in terms of the behaviors. Holly, what behaviors should parents be modeling today to reinforce that body positivity?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of people think that it's about what you say to their child and about their body, but it's actually more of what they pick up on what you say about your own body. If you say, oh, I better wear the stretchy pants because I've got my mom's apple pie this Thanksgiving, and oh man, this outfit makes me feel so fat, they're hearing that my worth is in how I look. So you might make comments like, you know, I can't wait to see Susan. I wonder if she lost the baby weight. And your child, who is a concrete thinker and derives meaning from things that we think are trivial, is going to hear that and associate worth, what I matter to other people is how I look and whether or not I maintained how I look.
Dr. Ramirez, I see you nodding in agreement there.
Yeah, it really comes down to what are our family dynamics around food and body image, and building that healthy balance from an early age, I think, is really important. Not making things so concrete or black and white when it comes to the apple pie, you know, is this a bad food? No, it's not. Moderation and learning to be able to experience different foods without having a negativity or stigma with it.
And I'm going to stay with you because a lot of our families in the Valley are living in multi-generational households, especially in Latino communities. We are very much known for giving people nicknames based on their appearance, whether it's flaca or gorda. My uncle still calls me flaca because I used to be back in the day. But some of that can really play into a kid's minds and actually hurt their feelings. No harm is meant, but how do we tell patients, you know, about the importance of showing support, or how do we tell parents rather about showing support for somebody who's struggling, for them to tell others, hey, maybe you might want to lay off on that? I don't know, how would we approach that?
It's difficult, especially when these things are so deep-rooted in our cultures, right? But I think it's important to communicate to families that some of that talk could have a negative impact. And when we're meeting, you know, with families for their physicals, mom and dad are there, and we're talking about weight and trying to frame it in a positive way where we can develop these like healthy thoughts around food and our bodies. I think those are the moments to kind of hone in on, and, you know, this may not be benefiting our child, and there are probably other ways we can show our affection.
It's just not the moment to say this is not benefiting Gordo. Okay, we're going to be wrapping up. I was told we just have just over 2 minutes left. Sunny, I'm going to start with you because you did say something notable. You said it's not about feeling 10 out of 10 every day, but about getting to a place where you feel comfortable to do what you enjoy without overthinking how you appear to others. So as we sharing closing thoughts, so that just struck me so much, because I think that's that self-acceptance that we all just need to get to one way or another.
Yeah, I describe it to my clients as we're so extreme in how we talk about body image. It's either terrible or body love, you know? And I'm like, what about, can you respect your body? Can you honor your body? Can you be a 7 out of 10 most days? We're all going to have those days where we feel like a 2. But on average, can we hit that 7? We all get one body. We get to choose how we take care of it. And so that's the goal, is to have that point where you're like, okay, I can engage socially. I can do athletics if that's my pursuit. I'm not going to let my body image get in the way of the things that I derive joy from.
I'll go to you, Holly.
Yeah, I think another thing to just add is that when you're wanting to show your child love, choose things about their personality. Affirm something about internal quality of theirs. That was really creative that you put that outfit together, and that was really brave, and I'm really impressed by your commitment to your sports, and comments about their kindness and who they are, and have that be what they find value in.
Dr. Ramirez?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Kind of shifts the focus away from what they're already so inundated with, which is, you know, body image. And so those are great words.
And Stacy?
I think I can just echo a lot of what's already been said. I think one of the things that I find that's most healing when it comes to body image specifically is exploring what their ideal might look like without their eating disorder. So if they weren't influenced by their eating disorder's thoughts or feelings or perceptions about the ideal or what they might be striving for, was there ever a time when they actually did feel good in their bodies, and what was that like for them? And really going back to exploring what were they doing at the time, what was their focus at the time, what were their influences at the time, and taking it back when it wasn't about their body image or it wasn't about fitting into a specific mold, and exploring those opportunities, whether it's engaging more creatively or it's hanging out with friends that weren't as maybe kind of preoccupied with image, and kind of exploring what those opportunities are for them.
All right, Stacey, thank you so much. That is it for our town hall tonight. We want to thank our panel of experts. We also want to thank President